DCFM 88.9, The Boss, Bruce Springsteen, Brilliant Disguise, 11 past 9 with Ken. Monday morning, good to see the sunshine. And joining me in the studio, good morning to Mayor Matthew Dickerson. Welcome.
The greatest ever live concert, Ken, I saw was Bruce Springsteen. He was absolutely brilliant. And this is later on in his career, this is probably 5 years ago. Just so much energy, crowd surf, just went for hours without a break, just absolutely energy personified.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing him at the Sydney Cricket Ground some years ago, but unfortunately that night the power kept going off and on. But Bruce, being the boss, he basically started just still performing acoustically, a cappella. They did everything while the power was being restored. And as you say, consummate performer.
Oh, yeah, very impressive.
Let's move on to Dubbo Regional Council, the councillors, and yourself as mayor. What is the status at the moment?
Some people do get a bit confused, Ken. It's a good question, actually, because we're in caretaker mode. Caretaker mode started on Friday the 16th of August and goes through to the election day, which is 14th of September, Saturday 14th of September. Now, caretaker mode means that there are certain things you can't do, but in general, council still needs to operate. So there's a few things you can't do. So one of the things you can't do is make a decision on a controversial DA. Now, the first question you're going to say is, what's controversial? Every DA can be potentially controversial, but it's defined as a DA that has more than 25 submissions associated with it. So if we had a DA before council that had more than 25 submissions, we'd have to say no. We've got to wait until after the election, until the new council comes along to make that decision. You also can't enter into contracts that are going to bind the new council into something. So, for example, a tender, you wouldn't decide on a tender during caretaker mode because that effectively binds the new council. You wouldn't sack the CEO and appoint a new CEO during caretaker mode because that would bind the new council to a decision there. So there's a couple of little technicalities, but in general, you still have to run council. We still need to make decisions. We thought it was going to be our last council meeting on the 15th of August, the Thursday night, but we actually resolved with that council meeting to hold an extraordinary council meeting on the 5th of September because there's a few things we've got to take care of. One of those is referring our financial figures to the auditor. So that needs to be done by a certain time frame and they weren't ready by the 15th of August. So we'll refer them at our meeting on the 5th of September.
So there's a few more boxes to be ticked.
Exactly right. And we've actually got 3 DAs that need to be considered by council that couldn't make it to our business papers by the 15th. So they'll be considered at that same meeting on the 5th of September. But there's nothing stopping if, for example, a council needed something urgent taken care of, they could call an extraordinary meeting and there's a process how they would do that. So things still operate until the 14th of September. That's when councillors cease to be councillors. And we actually have a document, there's a resolution we have and then a document that I signed the other day and the Deputy Mayor signed as well, that gives Murray, the CEO, the powers of council from the time of the election, 14th September, until the election is declared when you've got councillors again. So he's got the power of councillors for that short time frame to make financial decisions of council, policy decisions of council. But again, the CEO would be a bit silly to go and make crazy decisions in that time because as soon as a new council's elected, they would undo potentially some of those and it would look a bit silly. So I think a sensible CEO, a sensible GM is just going to be business as usual, nothing too outstanding until you get councillors in again.
So let's talk about the election day, the day where, and as we're all seeing, there's a number of new faces stepping forward, which is fantastic because that's what it's all about. If you feel passionate about Dubbo, and of course, well, you have to have already nominated because nominations are closed. So let's just talk about, we have the day of election, the day we all go to vote. What day is that? Saturday,
the 14th of September is election day. Keep in mind there's also pre-polling for the week leading up to that day. So you've got the Monday to Friday in the preceding week is pre-polling and then Saturday is the actual election day.
And there seems to be a trend that pre-polling is very popular.
It does seem to be getting more and more popular and I don't quite understand why. I mean, some people might find it convenient. It used to be very tough to pre-poll. In other words, the legislation says if you're within a certain distance of a polling location on election day and you can make it there, you need to vote on election day. So when you walked in at pre-poll, they'd quiz you almost to say, why are you here? Can you say that you can't make it on election day, etc., etc. They seem to have relaxed that ever so slightly now, and so they just basically accept that you're there for valid reasons on pre-polling rather than on election day. But there is a bigger trend to go towards pre-polling.
So there you go. We're a Dubbo Regional Council in caretaker mode at the moment. So do you officially step down as mayor as well as the council is stepping down as well?
On the 14th of September, that's right. So everything's as normal up till then. And the council meeting on Thursday night, I'm happy to talk about a few things that happened at the council meeting if you want. But certainly things continue on. I still do interviews with you. I'm about to leave the studio in a moment and go over to to a primary school and do some book reading for some of the kids there. So all the important mayoral duties continue on.
Absolutely. It is Book Week, isn't it? And of course, the fun part of Book Week is the dress-up parade.
I'm not doing that, Ken, I'm sorry. So I'm reading books for kids, but I'm not dressing up at the moment. And there's I've got to cut a ribbon. There's another opening of another business this morning later on. So all those things that you would expect a mayor to be doing, cutting ribbons, cutting cakes, smiling in front of kids, they all continue on. But councillors still have their role. If someone's got a problem with something at council, they can still contact their local councillor. So it's a tricky mode. What you've got to be very careful of is that I can't come on here and start putting election policies forward for any councillors trying to electioneer. That obviously would be inappropriate for a councillor or a mayor to do. Obviously you've got a separate process you would do that in if you're standing for election again. But you're right, we've got 48 people standing for election. That's a good, healthy number. That means people in the community are interested in council. There's a good, strong democracy there. And you're right, it's a process that you want people to be able to put their hand up. It's a wonderful democracy we have here to be able to put your hand up. Anyone that lives in the area could have put their hand up.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. So council meeting, then we'll briefly talk about a couple of quick things at the council meeting. So the REACT Centre, we formally resolved to put an application in to the state government for $11.25 million for the Renewable Energy Awareness and Career Training Centre down in Wellington. And the idea of that is that the state government's got their Energy Co money. They're distributing that. They announced the first lot of $70 million. We've got access to $11.25 million. And they're really focused on doing things that make a difference, doing things that drive the economy, doing things that are going to be long lasting. And this REACT Centre ticks all those boxes. It'll be great for training for renewable energy workers, employees in the early stages. And once that pulse finishes, then it will be a visitor centre, a visitor experience centre, something like the Parkes Telescope's got or the Snowy Hydro Scheme's got. We hope that this centre will have 100,000 visitors a year, which will fundamentally change the economy of Wellington. So we'll put that application in. That was resolved by council subject to a feasibility study, but those applications close on the 9th of September. So again, we'd need to make a decision about that before the 9th of September and obviously in caretaker mode. The other one that was discussed at the council meeting was the Rex debt. So there's almost $659,000 that Rex owes us at the point they went into administration. Going forward, the administrators are personally guaranteeing those payments for passenger fees going forward, but that past amount, we're in the mix with about $600 million, Ken, of other unsecured creditors, and we're just hoping that we get whatever we get out of that. We don't have any say in that. The administrators will finish that at some stage in the future, and you know what it's like with administrators. Yep. You might get 5%, 10% of that money back. So that's going to be a bit of a hit to our bottom line at the airport, which is very disappointing. But Kristen McBain, the federal minister, put out a circular on Friday and basically went out to all mayors and councils in impacted areas and said, if you want to book a ticket on Rex, please continue to book a ticket on Rex, because either they'll fly or the federal government will guarantee those funds. So if something happens and they completely fall over and the administrators say, there's no hope for this airline, we're closing the doors, the federal government has said, we'll give you your money back, because they want people still flying on Rex. Absolutely. 41 locations, Rex services, 21 of those locations, they're the only airline that services them. So if you normally flew on Rex before, fly on Rex with confidence knowing that you'll either fly or get your money back from the federal government if you don't get that ticket, if you don't manage to fly on that. So that's important as well. But from our perspective here locally, $659,000 or near enough to is going to be the hit to our bottom line potentially.
Matthew Dickerson, Mayor of Dubbo, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Always my pleasure, Ken. Thank you.